Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going deep on something a little different. We're diving into the marketing strategies of some of the biggest brands out there.
The ones that seem to just get it. They've built these huge followings and turned customers into, like, raving fans.
Exactly. We've got a ton of case studies and articles here all about how companies like Coca-Cola, Airbnb, Apple, Zappos,
Even Netflix.
yeah, Netflix too, and you'll be surprised how many of them use the same basic principles, just with slightly different approaches.
It's fascinating how they cracked the code of really connecting with their audience.
Right. So in this deep dive, we'll break down how these companies did it.
We'll look at the core marketing principles they used, how they figured out what customers actually needed, not just what they said they wanted.
And then how they took those insights and turned them into strategies that made them millions.
It's like a masterclass in marketing, but taught by the companies that are actually out there doing it.
Okay, let's jump right in. First up, Coca-Cola.
Ah, the classic example of emotional branding.
Right. Their marketing isn't about the product itself. It's all about the feeling.
Exactly. It's not about how thirst-quenching Coke is. It's about open happiness or taste the feeling. Do you remember those slogans?
Oh, yeah, totally. You see those everywhere. But why does that work so well? Like, what's the psychology behind that?
It's brilliant because they understand people buy feelings and aspirations as much as they buy products. The Coke isn't just a drink.
It's like an experience.
Exactly. It becomes a symbol of good times, sharing, happiness, all those positive emotions.
It's tapping into our need to belong, to feel good. Okay, so I get how they create the feeling, but how does that translate into actual sales?
Think about their Share a Coke campaign.
Oh, yeah, with the names on the bottles.
Exactly. It was simple but genius. By putting names on the bottles, they personalized the experience. You weren't just buying a Coke, you were buying your Coke.
I remember everyone was searching for their name or sharing Cokes with friends.
And that's exactly what they wanted. It created this huge buzz and a sense of connection with the brand.
So would you call that experiential marketing?
Absolutely. It's about creating an experience that goes beyond just seeing an ad, making the brand tangible, interactive.
Like pop-up shops, interactive installations.
Even personalized Coke bottles.
It all makes sense. But I imagine that can get expensive.
Definitely. Experiential marketing can be costly and difficult to scale. That's the trade-off.
Okay, let's move on to Airbnb. Now, they had a unique problem to solve. How do you sell the idea of staying in a stranger's home?
Yeah. Not just booking a room, but sharing someone's actual space. It's a completely different concept.
It seems a bit daunting, to be honest. So how did they pull it off?
By mastering the art of storytelling, they focused on authentic, local experiences. It wasn't about fancy amenities. It was about the charm of a real neighborhood.
Connecting with locals?
Having a travel adventure you wouldn't get from a hotel. It was about the story you could tell after your stay.
Right. I remember seeing all those heartwarming stories from real travelers on their platform. Way more authentic than some polished ad.
And that's the power of user-generated content.
Yeah.
It builds trust and community. It's like getting a recommendation from a friend. You're more likely to trust someone who actually stayed there.
Definitely. So Airbnb nailed the emotional side, but they were also smart about the technical stuff, right? Like SEO and targeted ads.
Oh, absolutely. Having a great story is one thing, but you need to get it in front of the right people.
So how do they do that?
By mastering SEO, they ensured that when someone searched for, say, unique stays in Rome, Airbnb popped up. And then targeted ads put those enticing stories directly in front of people already dreaming of travel.
They were hitting all the right notes. Okay, let's talk about the streaming giant, Netflix. They went from mailing DVDs to being the king of on-demand content. How they managed that?
There are a few key factors. First, they were masters of competitor analysis. They saw Blockbuster was slow to adapt.
And they jumped on the opportunity.
Exactly. They offered something different, more convenient. Second, they predicted the shift towards streaming. They invested heavily in building their platform before it was even mainstream.
Wow, that was a big gamble. What if people weren't ready to ditch their DVDs?
It was risk, no doubt. But they were willing to bet on the future, and it paid off big time. And third, they understood the power of original content. Stuff you couldn't get anywhere else.
They created their own hits. It's almost like they knew what people wanted to watch before they even knew.
They did. Well, sort of. It all comes down to data. Netflix invested heavily in data analytics. They tracked everything. What people watched, when they watched it, what they skipped.
That's a lot of data.
They used it to understand viewer preferences and inform their content strategy. It wasn't just luck. It was informed decisions driven by data.
So they were using data to create a personalized experience for each viewer.
Exactly. And that's why your Netflix recommendations are probably different from mine, even if we have similar tastes.
It's like they're reading our minds, but with algorithms instead of crystal balls.
Mhm.
So they understood the marketplace, created great content. What else is there?
Well, they also never stopped evolving. They didn't just rest on their laurels. They kept innovating, experimenting with new formats, expanding into new markets.
It's not enough to just get there. You have to keep moving forward.
Exactly. The market is constantly changing. If you don't adapt, you get left behind.
All right, before we move on to Apple and Samsung, I want to pause here. What are your takeaways so far? What's resonating with you from these examples?
What's sparking your curiosity? Think about it while we take a quick break. We'll be back soon to dive deeper into more success stories. Welcome back to our marketing deep dive. Ready to unpack how Apple and Samsung became the smartphone giants they are today?
Absolutely. I mean, smartphones are everywhere now, and it seems like Apple and Samsung are always a step ahead. How do they do it? Is it just about having the best tech?
Tech is important, for sure, but their real genius lies in understanding what consumers need from their devices, and often, even before consumers realize it themselves.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me an example.
Think about the early days of smartphones. They weren't just about making calls anymore.
No, they were mini computers in our pocket.
Exactly. Internet access on the go, multimedia, user-friendly interfaces. Apple and Samsung tapped into those needs in a way no one else had. They made it simple, intuitive.
But the market's always changing, right? First, it was better cameras, then longer battery life, then security features. It never stops.
Yeah.
How do these companies keep up?
It all boils down to continuous improvement. Both companies have mastered the art of listening to customer feedback.
They actually listen.
Oh, yeah. They incorporate that feedback into their product development. They're constantly iterating, refining, adding features based on what users are saying.
So they're treating their customers like a giant focus group.
You could say that, and it works. Think about it. How can you apply this in your own life, even if you're not designing the next iPhone?
That's a good question. I guess it's about being open to feedback and willing to make changes.
Exactly. Whether you're working on a project at work or even trying to improve a personal skill, ask for feedback from people you trust. See what works, what could be better. You might be surprised by the insights you get.
That's actually really helpful advice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I want to talk about a company that's legendary for its customer service, Zappos. I've heard stories about them going above and beyond for their customers.
Zappos. Oh, they're the gold standard. They get it.
I read about an employee who spent hours on the phone with a customer, helping her find the perfect shoes for her wedding. Who does that?
Zappos does. Because for them, customer service isn't just a department, it's a core value.
It's part of their DNA.
Exactly. They prioritize customer happiness above all else. It's not about following a script. It's about empowering employees to do what's right for the customer.
Even if it means breaking the rules sometimes.
Sometimes you gotta break the rules. But doesn't this approach have its downsides? It must be incredibly expensive to operate that way. How is it sustainable?
That's what I'm wondering.
It's definitely a challenge. This level of service is costly and difficult to scale, but Zappos believes the payoff in customer loyalty is worth it.
Because happy customers become repeat customers.
And they tell their friends. It's a long-term investment in building a brand that people love.
So it's like they're playing the long game. All right, we've seen a lot today. We've talked about emotional branding, storytelling, data-driven decisions, and a customer-centric culture. It's amazing how these companies took different paths but ended up with the same result, creating brands people connect with deeply.
It's like they each found a different piece of the puzzle. And what's interesting is that none of these strategies are rocket science. It's more about execution and commitment.
Okay, before we wrap up, I have one more question for you. We've talked about how these companies stay ahead of the curve, but what about staying true to themselves?
Ah, the age-old dilemma.
How do they balance innovation with preserving their core values and brand identity? That's something I'm really curious about.
It's a question they all grapple with. And we'll explore that and what the future holds for these giants in the final part of this deep dive.
Welcome back. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, exploring the marketing strategies of some of the biggest names out there.
From Coca-Cola's emotional branding to Zappos' incredible customer service, we've seen how these companies built brands people truly connect with.
But the marketing world never stands still. It's constantly evolving. So what does the future hold for these companies? And more importantly, what can you learn from their journey?
Well, predicting the future is always a bit of a gamble,
Oh,
right?
yeah, totally. But we can make some educated guesses, right? Based on emerging trends and what we know about these companies.
Absolutely. I think personalization is going to be huge, even more so than it is now.
Personalization. Like, how much more personalized can it get?
Imagine hyper-targeted ads that take into account not just your demographics, but your mood, your location, the time of day, even the weather.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. So, like, Coca-Cola could send you a coupon for a cold Coke on a super hot day.
Exactly. Or Airbnb could suggest a cozy cabin getaway when it's raining and you just want to stay in. It's about anticipating your needs and desires.
That's next level. What about Apple and Samsung? They're already so tech forward. What's next for them?
Well, AI is the obvious answer, isn't it?
Artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah, but how would that play out in the smartphone world?
Imagine a phone that anticipates your needs before you even realize them. It can suggest apps you might need, adjust settings automatically, even compose messages based on your writing style.
Okay, that's kind of blowing my mind. A little scary, but also really cool.
Right. It's like having a personal assistant in your pocket, but way more advanced.
Speaking of blowing my mind, what about Netflix? They've already revolutionized how we watch TV and movies. What could they possibly do next?
Well, I think interactive content is going to be big. Imagine being able to choose the direction of a storyline, influence a character's decisions, or even participate in virtual reality experiences within their shows.
Oh, hold on. So I wouldn't just be watching a show, I'd be a part of it.
Exactly. It would blur the lines between passive viewing and active participation. It would be a completely different way to experience entertainment.
That's wild. Okay, last one. Zappos. They've already set the bar so high for customer service. How can they possibly top that?
Well, I think community building is going to be key for them. They could create exclusive online forums where customers can connect, share their experiences, get personalized advice.
Like a Zappos fan club.
Yeah. Or they could host in-person events where customers can meet the team, try new products, and really feel like they're part of the Zappos family.
So it's about creating a loyal tribe that goes beyond just buying shoes.
Exactly. It's about fostering that sense of belonging, of shared values. And I think this trend will extend beyond just these specific companies. The future of marketing is all about human connection.
Human connection in a world that's becoming increasingly digital.
More than ever, it's about creating experiences that resonate on an emotional level, fostering genuine relationships between brands and customers.
So it's not just about selling a product anymore. It's about building a community, a movement, making people feel like they're part of something bigger.
You got it. And remember, none of these companies achieved success overnight. It took risks, experiments, adapting to the market.
So don't be afraid to try new things, learn from your mistakes, stay curious.
Exactly. Because the most important lesson we can learn from these success stories is this. Marketing is about understanding your audience, delivering value, and making those authentic connections.
That's great advice. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of marketing. We hope you've learned some valuable insights that you can apply in your own life and work. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.